Hey folks, welcome back. In this video, I'm discussing object-oriented design. And first thing in object-oriented design I will like to go over is software development activities. What is required in order to develop a new software? What's the first thing you do when you decide that you want to make a software? Now, the very critical and the most important step in software development process is to establish requirements. That's the first step in creating software. What are the requirements? To clearly establish those requirements. What user is asking and what you're understanding, are those the same things? So establishing requirements. Step number two, creating a design, a software design, an object-oriented design. What are your nouns in there? What are your verbs in there? A low-level design, so at different levels, creating a design of the software. That would be analogous to creating a blueprint of a house. That would be a software architect who would create a design. Step number three would be your coder who would implement the code. Now, implement the code, as we understand that would be a contractor in building a house. That's or somebody who's working on the specific parts of building a house, building a foundation, framing the house. So that's the implementation of the code. So your programmer at this level would be given the directions, the specific design, and they'll have to implement it. And step number four would be testing the software. There'll be a logical testing. There won't be any syntax errors. Now the testing would focus on if your program does what it is supposed to do, or if there could be any scenarios, any test cases that could be created that make software to fail and not work as it's supposed to. These activities are not strictly linear, they overlap and interact. Requirements in little more details. Software requirements specify the task that a program must accomplish. What to do, not how to do. So what should be the input, what should be the output? Often an initial set of requirements is provided, but they should be critiqued and expanded. It is difficult to establish detailed, unambiguous, and complete requirements at the start. Careful attention to the requirements can save significant time and expense in the overall project. So there's a watershed model, and that says that anything wrong, if you missed something in the requirements and you're in the testing phase, you have to come all the way back there and you have to go down again. So it's so important to clearly establish your requirements. Otherwise, you'll be at the testing phase and you're like, oh, well, we did not establish this clearly. And then you're going all the way back. Then you're changing the design, you're re-implementing the code, and then the testing happens. So that's why it's very, very important that requirements are established clearly. Number two step in designing a software. Software design specifies how a program will accomplish its requirements, what technologies will be used, what type of database, what will be the front end, what language to use. A software design specifies how the solution can be broken down into manageable pieces and what each piece will do. An object-oriented design, so this was software design, then an object-oriented design determines which classes and objects are needed, your nouns, and specifies how they will interact. So classes and how they will interact, what methods they have, it's in the object-oriented design. So we have a software design, we have an object-oriented design, and a lower level design details include how individual methods will accomplish their task. So that's the design part. Step number two of designing your software, of creating a software, right? So program development, step one, establish requirements. Step number two, you design your software. You do the software design, you do object-oriented design, low-level design. Now comes the coding part. That's number three process in software development. That's implementation. Implementation is the process of translating a design into source code. So design is there, classes are established, methods are established. It is established what each method would do. Now it is there just to write the code. Novice programmers often think that writing code is the heart of software development, but actually it should be the least creative step. Almost all important decisions are made during requirements and design stages. Implementation should focus on coding details, including style guidelines and documentation. That's very important. Whenever you're writing code for the next programmer who's going to read your code. You're not writing code for yourself. So that's implementation. And finally, the fourth step of software development, and the most important one, testing. Testing attempts to ensure that the program will solve the intended problem under all constraints specified in the requirements. A program should be thoroughly tested with the goal of finding errors. Debugging is the process of determining the cause of a problem and fixing it. We revisit the details of testing process later, the different ways of testing. So that's that. All right, folks, thank you for watching again. This was a quick video on program development.